and stuff. So, hey everyone, welcome to Sweetcast. I'm Clint, and I have a special guest today. This is Peter Simeti. Hey Peter, how are you doing?
Hey, Clinton, how's it going? I'm doing good. How's everybody?
Yeah, good. People are going to be kind of filtering in here for a few minutes, so we'll let people filter in a minute. So we're going to talk about crowdfunding and all of the aspects there, because one, you have a crowdfunding campaign right now. I'm doing one in it'll be a week from Tuesday. It's coming really quickly. So that's going to be the topic. But I was thinking of a few questions for you too, just to kind of get you warmed up. Want to say hi to the people in the chat though. A new disguise, welcome. Gorgeous Sosa, welcome. Razman, welcome. A new disguise, we already said him. Eric Breen, always good. Welcome. Will everyone come in? So I had a question for you. I've noticed on social media you will post stuff or memes about I don't know, I'm forgetting his name, Bruce Lee often. Is there
Yeah.
a reason for that?
Uh, Bruce Lee is probably one of my heroes. Probably one of my top three. And I made a reference to this during the State of Alterna stream when all of the craziness happened. That I didn't really give much thought to this, but my three heroes in various points of life have all been Bruce Lee, Jim Lee, and Stan Lee. And it kind of worked out. And obviously, Stan Lee is not actually Stan Lee, and Jim Lee. He has a Korean name, and his American name is pretty much Jim Lee. And same thing for Bruce Lee, honestly. But it kind of worked out that way. And Bruce was someone who a huge inspiration for me. Even though obviously he was I think about 12 or 13 years gone before I was born.
Yeah.
But his philosophies, his multi-talented nature, obviously still has ripples today. So I'm not alone in having, someone, to appreciate Bruce Lee, but he meant a lot to me growing up. And honestly, not so much. I know people might think, oh, maybe he meant a lot because I share Asian ancestry as well, but not necessarily. He had this kind of presence and this kind of attitude that was unbelievable. Like how much adversity he faced and his outlook on life and everything. Very, very motivational. And I love his son Brandon and all of that. And I learned more about them as I had gone on in life. But yeah, I always found Bruce to be extremely inspirational and someone that I always had looked up to. And the more I learned about him, the more I loved the guy. So it's just funny to see so many parallels as well, because he was treated kind of like an outcast too, for going against very conventional and traditional styles of martial arts, in terms of also not even wanting. People were upset because he wanted to teach martial arts to the American culture, and it wasn't really viewed as that was an okay thing to do, and he was kind of outcast from his community because of it. And I thought that was kind of interesting to see that usually you hear about that kind of stuff not necessarily happening from your own community to outcast you because you want to spread the word, and carry on traditions to other people and all of that kind of stuff. And he broke the mold a bit, and I think they feared him for it.
Yeah. Did you follow? I mean, it's interesting to me because he has a lot of respect now that he's like from a lot of different aspects. So there's like the entertainment world. There's even, I don't know if you watch like mixed martial arts or anything like that, UFC fights, but everybody has a reverence for him. Even in, just the different kind of worlds that he's touched. So are you into like the martial arts aspects, or is it more like him as a person?
I mean, all of it, but especially him as a person and him as an artist as well, because he wasn't just an actor. He wasn't just a martial artist. He was a philosopher. He was an artist. He was a dancer. He was an award-winning dancer. He was a teacher in terms of his philosophy and martial arts and training and all of that. So he was someone who was very multifaceted, and I love his discipline for that. And he was someone who was also even a bit of a scientist in a way too, kind of what we take for granted now in terms of nutrition and physical fitness and all of that. He kind of did all of that to himself and experimented on what worked and what didn't work and what he wanted to use and what he wanted to not use. And it was that kind of drive he had was great. And even in his book, you know, he would have illustrations of different poses and fighting mechanics and all of that kind of stuff. It's wonderful stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, we have in the chat they said his writing is incredible. He's truly like he mastered a lot of skills. So that's something to envy.
Yeah.
I'm going to remind everyone in the chat that YouTube for some reason has not seen fit to monetize this channel yet. So I don't have super chats, but if you want to ask Peter a question or me a question or make a statement or whatever, just do @Sweetcast. So that way I don't miss you, but I will try to check in on the chat as our numbers are growing here. So cool. I really appreciate you being here, Peter. It's always good to talk to you. And even like on a private basis, I've already asked you so many questions because like crowdfunding, particularly, that's the topic here. But there are a lot of questions, especially if for people that are doing it for the first time, or even just doing like a comic. Like I've done a crowdfunding campaign before, but it's for a game. It's very different than for a comic in a lot of ways. So yeah, I'm curious. What would you say? Like, what are the most important things do you think to making a successful crowdfunding campaign?
I think first and foremost, absolutely the most successful thing you need to do is before you even contemplate setting up your crowdfunding campaign, months in advance, begin to build your network and promotion of this crowdfunding campaign. And whether that means if you're doing a comic, well, I don't want to talk out of my area of expertise. So I'm only going to stick to talking about comics and things like that. I could probably even touch upon the film because we did Kickstarters for the Chair film. But I'm going to stick to comics for the most part. I think that's what everybody will be interested in. You know, you want to make sure a lot of people go into crowdfunding and they go, okay, well, I'm crowdfunding for my comic. We'll get the art and whatever later on, you know, once we get fulfillment. Don't do that. Put some money into it. Pay your artist 4 or 5 pages, pay your letterer, get completed pages to show people. Get all of that done beforehand. Start teasing panels, start teasing creators that are involved, start teasing all of that. You don't necessarily have to say you're going crowdfunding just yet. Just talk about your book. Make sure you interact within a network of people who would be interested with that as well, and reach out to other people. Get into, you know, like with YouTube, get into chats, get into streams, talk to people, build actual genuine relationships with people. This way, you know, also where do you fit in all of this? You know, don't just go into something with the mindset that you want to just go in there and like use people. Build genuine relationships. Yes, it's always very, very obvious.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I would also add to that with, so I'm not at the crowdfunding stage yet, but I have been doing a lot of the networking stuff. And I will say you can't duplicate exactly what somebody else is doing, right? Like, you know, a lot of people respect you, but you can't just say, oh, Peter Simeti is doing this, I'm going to turn myself into Peter Simeti, you know, and
don't do that.
Yeah, you got to be yourself and you know, find what works for you and find your niche. I'm going to catch some of these, we'll call them ultra chats because they're better than super chats. Tank Ferret Art says, hail Alterna Comics, Sweetcast and friends. Hello, Tank, great to see you here. Even Von Skyver says, Sweetcast, hashtag comics reform for or against. I'm not sure I've heard that hashtag before, but just off the cuff, reform sounds great. So I don't know. I'd need to look into it more and find out what the specifics are, but I definitely have some issues. So I'm happy for there to be some positive reform. I don't know, Peter, have you heard of that at all?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah,
no.
We're gonna have to learn about it. Adam AF says, hey, Sweetcast, hello chat. And yeah, we're caught up. So so yeah, first you have preparing for the crowdfunding campaign, building genuine relationships. What do you do? How long? Is there like an ideal? I realize that the answer is probably it depends, but what would be, I don't know, your suggestion, I guess?
To me, as soon as you've got something to talk about and something to show, and an actual script and a plan laid out behind the scenes, that's when it's okay to start talking about it publicly. Obviously, you don't want to tell everyone every single thing. That's madness.
Right. Yeah.
But you want to just have, again, a nice, natural, organic way of, you want to have always that mindset of people go into it and they go, I want to do the hard sell. I want to tell people about it, and kind of like really kind of shove it down their throat in terms of them understanding what I'm doing. No, don't do that. Don't do that. I see that all the time. You want to share. You want to say, hey, this is what I'm working on. Check it out. You want to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you guys think? You want to do that. You want to invite people to talk to you about what you're creating, especially if you're a first-time creator. If you've done things for years, it's one thing. You don't necessarily have to invite people to interact with you as much. You don't have to necessarily show that level of openness. You still can do it, absolutely, but you don't have to do that as much. You can just kind of put stuff out there, and hopefully you're the kind of person that people are used to communicating with, and you'll communicate back with them. And then you guys can have a conversation about the work, about, if they're looking forward to seeing more. You can gauge, do people care about this project? Because that's your very first thing. Because if you find no one really cares about what you're doing, you're going to have to assess, okay, I'm either not doing something that appeals to people, or I just don't have enough people in my network that are aware of what's going on. And usually that's more likely the answer, is that you just don't have enough people that are aware yet. So work on that, work on expanding that. Because if you go into a crowdfunder, and you could get very lucky, you could get lucky with a project that you have no following on social media, and it just takes off for whatever reason. Someone else gets a wind of it, and then they decide to share it, and it takes off. But you don't want to gamble on that. That's, you want to try to have as many bases covered as possible, and growing your network first and foremost is the best thing you can do to, at least once you launch it, make you sleep better at night.
Yeah. I learned this. I don't even remember. I want to say that I read it on a blog. I can't even remember his name. I've talked about him several times. The guy that wrote Remind, chat, help me out. But he did a lot of stuff on crowdfunding comics. Anyway, there's a natural reciprocity effect. If you're doing nice things for people genuinely, people are more likely to help you. And I can just say, from what I do have, which is a YouTube channel, I promote a lot of different crowdfunding campaigns, and I know there are a lot of channels like mine, even bigger, smaller, and they're willing to do the same. It goes a long way if you if, and when I'm saying, like, when you're giving, you want to give like 10 times more than you ask. And so the giving is even just like, hey, like a nice word on Twitter, that for me personally, that goes a long way. When someone's just like, hey man, what's up? That doesn't mean like, you're handing out money or anything like that. But yeah, I'd say that goes a farther than just being like, hey, I've got a book. You need to give me a platform and promote my book, so, or back my book for that matter. So yeah, that's good. Even Von Skyver, he's clarifying, I think here, he says, if a comic passes the Chekhov's gun test, it gets a Comics Reform seal of approval. I'm gonna have to read about that. I've not heard of it. So yeah, I'll have to look at that.
Chekhov, like from Star Trek?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I wish I could have an opinion on it, but
this is the first I've heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like a not a real thing to me. Is it real?
I don't know. Maybe we're being trolled. Maybe that could be too.
Is this Diamond's new way of curating the books that go through the system?
Yeah, they will shut you down if you're not getting out there. Cool. So into crowdfunding, you prepared crowdfunding. How do you know when it's time to pull the trigger and launch?
Yeah, you know when it's time to pull the trigger when you've got your all your stuff sorted out. And what I mean by that is you've done the research, not only have you decided to do research on the crowdfunding platform you're going to choose, but also the research about how much everything's going to cost, the budget for your team, the budget for shipping, because you have to also do all of that in advance. And you could easily do all of that in advance. You could check all that out, make sure that you are getting every single thing lined up, because otherwise, how are you going to know how much you need to to raise? It's just kind of, you're just taking a shot in the dark. A lot of people, they go, okay, this is how much printing costs and how much the team costs, and that's what we'll try to raise. And then they forget to include things like, well, you got to pay for shipping. There's fees for those platforms. There's packaging and material costs. And there's also your time. Your time is involved in terms of getting all those rewards out. And if this campaign was to get tremendous, are you going to do it all on your own, or are you going to do use a fulfillment company? So it turns into, well, what do you need? What do you need to figure out? So that's kind of all those little things you need to come up with and realize, okay, like right now with the Alternate Comics is expanding Indiegogo, I had to limit quantities of all the rewards, because otherwise we're going to sell out of books. Like, let's say, people go, well, maybe this should raise 50 or 60,000. There's only enough of a quantity on there to raise, I think, $12,000 to $13,000 worth of what we need, which is more than enough. Don't need to raise more than that. And it keeps it so I know exactly what we have going on. Stuff will sell out. That's fine. That's okay. We're always going to be able to print more and make more. But you want to make sure that you can control certain aspects. Now, if you're doing something for just a book, you don't really need to limit that. You can do the print run later on and look at how much you've got, and make sure, this is something I see a lot, make sure that you print more. You print more than what got ordered. So let's say 500 people got the book. That's a really good crowdfunder for the most part. Order 1,000, order 1,500. And the reason why, not only will you need more books than you think, because there's damages, there's replacements, but you should also consider opening up some kind of a web store, sell them on eBay, Etsy, Amazon, whatever, and sell them direct to people afterwards. And then also, when you have a crowdfunder in the future, you also now have a stock of books you can have as an instant reward. Whether or not it relates to the next book, the next project, whatever, it now becomes an instant reward that you can use. So a lot of people, they usually keep those things short. They don't really print a lot of extra, and then they're kind of starting from scratch every single time.
Yeah. Retrographic Books makes a great point in the chat. He says it's cheaper to print more also. So yeah,
Yep.
your cost per unit goes down for sure. Yeah, and I did post in the chat there the link to your Indiegogo that's open right now. You got funded, was it the first 24 hours? You were
Yeah, it was, I think it was like the first 24 and a half.
Oh, so close.
Yeah, it was just right there.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, so up and away, this is, not exactly like one comic, but you've done tons of those for sure, and they I imagine run pretty similarly, except for the limitations on how many backers you can have. So yeah, that's there. It is limited. So yeah, jump on that. So shipping. I heard a story. I didn't hear it. I read it online about a guy. This was several years ago, and this was not comics. I want to say it was actually a game, but he crowdfunded it. He made the game. It was way more successful than he had thought it would be, and it ruined him because of shipping costs. He didn't have the shipping costs figured out correctly. So ever since I read that, I've been like so paranoid about shipping. Sometimes people do free shipping, and that scares me, just the idea of it. And then other times people are charging what I feel like is an awful lot of money for shipping. What are your kind of thoughts on being successful and not, losing your house over shipping?
Yeah, so we're in kind of a unique predicament where we have printed material, and I also have a whole lot of boxes. If anyone knows me, I'm packing up like crazy all the time, all the orders that come in. We get a lot of boxes because we get a lot of books as well from our overstock. So I've got a lot of boxes on hand, but I also order shipping materials. I don't have anything within arm's reach, but I order stay flats and I order easy fold mailers, which are similar to Gemini mailers, but they're about 20 cents or so less per piece, and they pretty much do the exact same job. So all that kind of stuff, you have to take that into consideration. As far as shipping costs, not just packaging costs, but shipping costs, it depends. It always depends what you're ordering and what you're going to be shipping in terms of every backer is going to be ordering. Like, let's say, you've got, and this was a funny one that happened to us about maybe 4 years ago. I had a stretch goal that was, I think it was like to add a mug on it. And we hit a certain stretch goal. So backers then who pledged like $50 or more got a mug added onto their, onto their whole, whatever they got.
Yeah.
But because of that, the mug added like 1.5 pounds because it was like a really sturdy mug. And so it made the shipping, boom, that automatically goes up. As soon as it's 1.5 pounds, that's technically 2 pounds for shipping. So it went up 2 pounds. And then now the mug is a little bit bigger. So if they ordered 2 or 3 graphic novels, let's say, that's not, an easy fold mailer anymore. It's a box now. So now I need boxes, and now I need to pay for extra shipping, and I need to also get packing materials in to make sure the mug doesn't shatter, move around, etc. So that's that kind of thing where at the time, that was the first time ever I added a mug into anything. And I thought, I don't ever want to do a mug again. And then afterwards I figured, you know what, I'll do a mug. I'll just keep in mind, weigh it, charge for shipping. Yeah. So you have to keep that in mind in terms of all of that sort of stuff, because otherwise, you are going to lose $4 or $5 per backer. And if you have like 500-600 backers, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And depending then on, again, what kind of stuff you need to purchase to ship certain items, that could cost you a lot too. If you're going to do, and most people will do this, at least if they're in America anyway, they're going to do priority mail or something through USPS. If you're going to do priority mail, take advantage of the fact that the post office will give you basically free boxes. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do to kind of cut costs here and there if you need to. And if you're shipping a graphic novel, absolutely ship it media mail. Just be a little bit more, to pay some mind to the fact that, and no matter what you ship, you should always pay mind to this. They're going to destroy your package. They're going to kick it. They're going to throw it. They're going to, use it in a wrestling match. They're going to just obliterate your package. So make sure that the thing is well packed, secure, and that it's going to take a bit of a beating and still survive. It's not always going to survive still, because I've had stuff that I thought I packed incredibly well, and I'll get it returned back to me. And I've said this before on my show. There was one package in particular went to Italy, and it came back because for whatever reason they couldn't figure out who to give it to. The address was wrong, whatever. The thing was, all the sides, the whole box just basically collapsed. It was in a bag. It was in a bag that was like, we're sorry that this happened. Oh, yeah. We try to take care of the packages, and I'm like, and half of the contents were gone, and the rest of it was completely just destroyed. And it was books.
It's the apology bag. Yeah.
yeah. And this happened like 4 months after I had shipped it, and even the post office was horrified. They were like, I don't think we can do anything. And I said, there's insurance on this, but it literally expired 2 weeks ago. so that was it.
Oh no.
So that, even when you think you're doing a great job, something can still go wrong. But it's still important to do the great job.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're talking about percentage points too. If, if you're shipping out 500 orders, the better you're packaging them, within reason, you're lowering your percentage of damaged goods, I guess. And it's funny because I just got a copy of Jawbreakers in the mail. I don't know if you have one of these, but it came in a Gemini mailer, and I was looking at that, and you're right, it was thrashed. It was mailed twice though, because this was mailed to somebody else, one of my viewers, and he was kind enough to send it along to me because he had an extra one. And yeah, the thing was so hashed, but the book was, it arrived. It was there in one piece, so that ended up being okay. I'm just gonna look back at the chat here. So many people keep commenting on that I've done a face reveal. Man, I've been showing my face for like 3 or 4 weeks now. So
I think they're just that horrified, Clint.
No. The funniest comment is people are like, "Whoa, your face does not match your voice." When I started making videos, everyone's like, "Oh, he's such a nice young man," like I'm like 18 or 19 years old. But no, I'm like a balding, 32-year-old. So could be worse though. That's for sure. Scott is in the house. He says, "Hey brother, glad to catch you live." Scott, it's always good to see you. Levi Wallace says, "Ask him about what percentage of books cover price and LCS pays to stock that book." You get that question? Ask him what percentage of books cover price the LCS pays to stock that book, please. Do you mean I'm like the
I think maybe he means
wholesale?
the discount that they get. I guess that could be treated as like a two-part question with Alterna, because we sell direct to the stores as well. As far as this is what I've heard from stores as far as when they order our books, because every single publisher does different tiers and has their own kind of, if you guys know anything about the Marvel and the DC ordering incentives, and you order so much, you get a different bracket, you get a different discount, you get different books, etc. For us, as far as the LCSs have told me, they say it's a 45% discount that they get from Diamond, and when they order through us, they get a 55% discount, so off of cover price. So I don't know if hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah.
But usually it's around 50% or so. I like to give them a little bit more because we actually give more of a discount to Diamond to get it to Diamond. And then on top of it, you have to ship it, by freight or UPS, FedEx, that kind of a thing. You can't just ship them. You can't just ship the comics through USPS to Diamond. They need them in the bigger carriers, the commercial carriers. So those usually are more expensive as well. So when a store actually orders through us, even though they order direct and we give a bigger discount, we actually make more money than going through Diamond. So that's why I always encourage stores to order direct through us, especially if a lot of them get very frustrated, and especially when it comes to our books, for whatever reason, they tend to get frustrated more. They order direct and they're not frustrated then. So we do that. We do that for them.
Yeah, it makes sense. Even von Skyver says, Chekhov's gun is a dramatic principle that states that every element in a story must be necessary and irrelevant elements should be removed. I like that principle. I can say that just from like a writing and editing perspective. I would really pity though if whoever would have to read every single book to give them that stamp of approval. So I don't know. Yeah, you make the logistics work, but I like the principle there. Zoomed 1975 says, "Excellent idea about the logistics of Comicsgate. If we're gonna win this war, we better learn about logistics. Winning wars is about logistics and will." I thought of that way, but yeah, logistics are important. Let's see. Razman should have used a candy themed mask. Oh, that would have been fun, huh? Yeah, my name's on my book though, so I've already published a couple novels, so I figured I don't want to start from scratch. I have somewhat of an audience already. I'm going to unite the two, so we'll just go with it. But that would be fun though. I could do a candy theme mask just for kicks, giant lollipop or something. Levi Wallace says, "Ask him what percentage." Oh, did I already read that one?
Maybe he was clarifying. He might have been clarifying.
Yeah. Yep. Levi. Oh yeah, he says that answers my question. Thank you. Okay, great. Cool. Just want to make sure we are caught up. Perfect. So during the campaign, this always comes as a shock, I think, to a lot of people that running a crowdfunding campaign is a lot of work. It's not it's not just like you push go and then you go sit back, or you go on with your life and then just check it in 30 days when it's over. It's actually a lot of work. What kind of work are you doing while a crowdfunding campaign is up?
Well, you're making sure that you've got another thing that's important too. Newsletters are extremely important for this. Newsletters are important anyway, but that is a very important part of any kind of business marketing plan, especially right now. But yeah, you have to make sure you're promoting it. You have to make sure you're talking about it. You have to make sure that you're doing stuff like this. Even, both of us are talking, and it's not necessarily the kind of thing where I'm trying to make sure everyone just does like this telethon style thing, and where the whole show is about, oh, go to the Indiegogo and give something. But make sure that you're out there and that you're talking about it, and that even if it's not YouTube or whatever, but that maybe it's a Facebook group you're a part of, maybe it's your newsletter and only your newsletter, maybe it's just a website you have, maybe all that kind of stuff. If you can utilize all of it, it helps. But make sure it's at least something that you feel comfortable in, something that you've built and amassed some kind of following of people who are interested in the things you do and are interested in supporting you, because that's something as well. I tell the guys at Alterna all the time, and everybody else, honestly, the same thing. When it comes to crowdfunding, more than anything, it's very much like a convention, and you're doing hand selling. And when, if you've been to conventions, I'm guessing, right? Comic conventions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So when you don't know anything about someone's book, more than likely, you're going to purchase that book based on the fact that that person, you like them. They came across friendly and, inviting to you, and their book looked interesting, and you thought, okay, I'll support it. And that's kind of what crowdfunding is.
Yeah.
If you're a massive celebrity type of person, like sometimes on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, you'll see that's different. But even then, they still promote. They still utilize their network, all that kind of stuff. No one ever puts up a crowdfunder and just, like you said, walks away.
Right.
No one does
that. Peter, I'm really sorry to put you on the spot. I'm wondering, my kid needs me really quick. Can I just put it on you and you talk about your crowdfunding campaign or whatever for a minute?
I don't know, Clint. I never do one of these type of things.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing you're a professional. So I'm really sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna turn off my camera if I do this right. There we go, and just mute for a second and take it away. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Alrighty. Hey guys, this is the Peter Simeti show. How are you guys doing in the chat? I really appreciate you guys coming out tonight to talk about this and to engage with me and Clint. If you are not familiar with the Indiegogo that we're doing right now, the Alterna Comics Indiegogo is about expanding our storage space. I know it doesn't sound like a sexy kind of project, but you'd be wrong. Now, instead of just supporting one book on Indiegogo, you're basically supporting this entire company, the entire company of Alterna Comics. So you would basically be getting the chance to, you guys in the chat are hilarious. Thank you guys. You'd basically be getting the chance to become a part of this whole thing where we expand our space. We're able to print up more books. We're able to eventually utilize this space very, very soon, to get into Alterna distribution. We've already been doing Alterna distribution basically for 2 years now. For those that don't know, we sell direct to readers, we sell direct to retailers, and we also do traditional distribution as well. The Indiegogo right now, let me check it. It's doing pretty damn good. I'm very, very happy and very, very grateful. It's almost at, well, let's see, almost at 3,500 in the first 2 days, 99 backers on board. All right. We've hit the original initial goal. That was $2,500. And then $5,000 is the stretch goal, and so is $8,000. So at the $5,000 stretch goal, everybody gets an Alterna Comics magnet, and we upgrade from a 10 by 10 to a 10 by 13. Doesn't sound like a lot, but we can make that extra 30 square feet of space really work. Now, at the $8,000 stretch goal, we upgrade from that 10 by 10 or 10 by 13 at that point to a 10 by 20, which is the biggest size that they offer. And that's that's when some really great stuff can happen. Now, we can utilize this space, like I said, print larger print runs, which means we have more books in stock, because everybody's always complaining about certain books going out of stock. No matter how many I seem to print, no matter with the buyback program with retailers, we still can't keep certain books in stock because you guys just love them, which is great. So grateful for that. So we can do bigger print runs. We can get shipping supplies in bulk, which is important. Lowers the cost per unit from buying in bulk. We can get part-timers eventually to come in, because with the space, we can get people to go in there. It's a better setup, more organization. They can come in and help, especially with the big campaigns like Alternaween. Alternaween was massive. I think it was like 16 or 18,000 books. And I got all those out pretty much within 2 or 3 weeks. I still don't know how I did it. We're recovering over here. I don't know how we pulled it off, but we did. And we can do stuff like that now, and getting part-timers in to help out. And then the best part of that is that once those part-timers become acclimated, once they're used to the system, they're used to understanding the standards of how packages need to go out, that's when it's time for us to begin taking the steps towards alternative distribution. So basically, we can start utilizing our network of retailers, readers, customers, everybody, towards getting more books from other publishers, other creators on board, and they can go to one easy place and get books from everybody. Start off small, of course, but this is the first step in doing that. So it's very, very important. I know it seems kind of like it's just a storage space. How important is storage space? The storage space is very, very important, because right now our storage space is forcing me to order smaller print runs than I'd like. And that doesn't enable us to grow and get all those sales in that we could possibly get. We have to keep going back to print. And the more and more, like we talked about before, Clint, the more you go back to print, the more expensive it gets. So that's the spiel. And I hope you guys support the Indiegogo.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks for covering. The nice thing is, usually I stream after my kids are in bed, and to go in earlier is nice because there's, I don't know, it's a nicer time of day, really. It feels like there's less competition for streaming, but at the same time, then my kids aren't in bed, so we'll make it work. Yeah, so that storage space is really important when you're talking about volume, for sure. So I'm gonna drop that link in the chat so everyone can see it. And hey, Ben Henderson, good to see you in the chat. All sorts of people. Ann Graham, good to see you. Just checking in on everyone. Great. So you went through your campaign. We've talked about the process throughout the campaign. I'm curious, is there a difference between the first day of your campaign versus the 10th day of your campaign? Are you hitting it harder, or does it make no difference?
Yeah, the first day, every single crowdfunder I've ever done, and I think I've done between Indiegogo and Kickstarter at this point, I want to say it's like 15 or 16, I think. I don't know, I'm getting up there in years. Let's say 15, nice even number. It usually starts here, and then it goes down, and it kind of plateaus a bit, and then it goes back up. So the first day or two, it starts pretty high. You shoot up. Usually, hopefully, that's how it goes, right? And then the momentum kind of dies down a bit. Unless you keep on promoting to newer spots, you keep on maybe putting in different rewards, you keep on giving new information out there. A lot of people, what they'll do, at least this is what I see, they'll just keep putting out the link and say, back this project over and over. Or then they'll go, okay, it's about halfway through, backers have died down. I'm going to start DMing everyone I know. It doesn't even matter if I ever talked to them before. I'm going to DM them.
Yeah. Spam time.
I've gotten DMs from people. I'm like, oh, we're following each other. I didn't know that, because this is the first time we've ever interacted. Yeah. And they'll be like, hey, I've got this project going on right now. You want to back it? And I'm like, hello, that would be nice first.
Right.
So don't do that. That's bad. That's very bad.
Yeah.
you want to make sure, again, that's part of building up an organic actual network of people who are interested. And so you want to make sure you're putting out different unique things. You want to make sure you're putting out updates too of, hey, this is where the campaign's at. Hey, this is where, you know, how many backers we've got. Like right now, 99 backers. That'd be amazing if we hit 100 tonight. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty confident we will. But that would be great. It's a little bit of a milestone, something to celebrate, something to talk about. And, you know, all those kinds of things. It's something that gets people interested again, and something that's new without it just constantly being the same thing of, this is my project, support it. This is my project, support it. That kind of thing becomes monotonous, and it becomes, you become the annoying crowdfunding guy.
Yep.
So you don't want to do that. And you don't do that. However you promote, you don't want to do that. So always make sure that you're going about it in a way that people want to support you. They want to be engaged with it, and that it feels genuine. Being genuine is the best way to make it feel genuine. But if you don't know how to do that, at least make sure that you're being as human about it as possible. So yeah, just that's the best way to go about this whole thing. And again, like what you had mentioned, you start off really good, and then it usually tanks a bit. Don't be scared by that when that occurs. It always goes back up at the end.
Yeah. It's funny. It reminds me of when I was doing my crowdfunding campaign for the game I was working on. Me and my brother are we'll go through phases of playing card games or things together and get really into it. Anyway, so I did a card game. We crowdfunded it, and people were. It was really weird when you got into, at least it was a Facebook group, but everyone would try to get to know you, and then they would drop their game at the end. Like, oh, by the way, I'm doing this. So it felt so fake all the time. So I had a really, really hard time selling it, because I felt like that's the way that I felt. Everything felt so fake. When you have good relationships with people, and you're giving way more than you're getting, or way more than you're asking, I should say. That I think goes a long way. And then you develop actual friendships, which is great.
Yeah.
So what about the end of your campaign? Are you doing something different, like the last day? Or I guess this is a tough question to approach, I guess. And you might not have experience in failed campaigns, because I think you've been successful every time.
No, not true. But I haven't had a failure in a while, but yeah, definitely early on, when I was new to the game, and when the game itself was new in terms of crowdfunding, and no one knew what the heck to do. If you didn't have that big following, which I definitely didn't at the time, I had a failure or two, and it makes you feel, in the beginning, it made you feel like, geez, no one cares, you know. But the thing is that it's a very different system than it was then. And I know a lot of different things I know now that I didn't know then. And the whole point of everything is you try to not make the same mistakes twice. So you always try to have every kind of failure. You know, you always take that and you go, all right, well, what can I learn from this so I don't repeat that? And, you know, I've failed way more times than I've succeeded. And the key to it, though, is just learn from it every single time, and don't be afraid to fail. Because you're gonna fail. So don't be afraid that it could possibly happen. But to cut off my point, and possibly one that you might be making right now, I just noticed that we hit 100 backers. So thank you, guys.
Hey, all right. That's awesome. Thanks, everyone. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. The century mark. Nice.
Yeah. That is a pretty good milestone.
3503. Thank you guys so much. We are just like a stone's throw away from that $5,000 stretch goal. That's great. Thank you.
Very cool. Yeah. So the failure component, so I look at the numbers of crowdfunding, and it's not just crowdfunding. It's any endeavor, just starting a business. I've started several businesses, and I've failed. The first, like, I don't know, it was like 2 businesses I did. They were just bad ideas. I learned from them. Now I have one, not speaking of the YouTube channel, I have a successful business that's been working, and we're going into our 3rd year. And it like, you learn, just like you're saying, you learn from those failures, those early failures. And yeah, you make adjustments, and that's okay, because that's good feedback. Not always are people going to tell you, hey, there's something glaringly wrong with your campaign. Though it's nice to have that if somebody's willing to give you that information, and you're willing to, listen to it. But at the same time, people vote with their feet. And so if you are doing the right kind of marketing, if you believe that you're getting it out there, there's definitely something to be learned if you're not hitting your right audience or not. And of course, I'm not talking about my campaign. Don't worry, everybody. I'm going to be making $25,000 at least. So yeah, don't stress. That was a joke, everyone. Ethan Van Sciver once, because I was like, I just want to get my comic made. I'm not too concerned about making boatloads of money. He was like, shut up. Don't ever say that again. You're going to make boatloads of money. So I'm going with that. Yeah.
That's
Danny,
your story and you're sticking with it.
Yes. Yeah. We're going at least 25,000. Yeah. Danny Agent 87 says the Alterna campaign must hit 10K. There's absolutely no reason why it couldn't or shouldn't. So yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so the at what point do you know or that you need to make adjustments during your campaign? Some people you want to extend the campaign if you feel like, man, I'm not on track to get funded. I don't think, I want to get your take on this, but I don't think extending your campaign is the answer. I think going back, letting your campaign end and going back and working on it, depending on how close you are. If you're really, really close, that might be different. But generally speaking, if you're not going to hit it, you're not going to hit it.
Yeah. If extending your campaign also coincides with making some key changes, listening to the people that said, oh, maybe put this reward or put that there, or, give more updates or more videos or more images. If it coincides with improvements, then yeah, because you're not just doing more of the same. But if it's just going to be, oh, we'll just extend it and it'll still be the same thing that's going on, that's not necessarily going to do any good. So it always goes back to that whole thing of, well, what are you doing different? And who are you engaging? And are you engaging someone in a different way? Are you engaging different people? Because, usually it takes, I think it's some kind of cliche marketing rule or whatever, that someone needs to see something 3 times before it sticks. And so you give that time and you give that promotion and you put that effort forth. But if you've been doing it for, most people do this stuff for a month, 30 days or so. If you're doing that and you're really struggling and it seems like you're not even close, that's when it becomes time to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. I was going to point out, Iwazuru. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Nice joke, Clint. I'm sensing some sarcasm there, so I'll just, I'll just pretend there wasn't. There's something to be said for being prepared before you get into a crowdfunding campaign. And the more prepared you are, the better campaign you're going to have for sure. And so, yeah, making those tough decisions. But I know that most campaigns don't. I mean, they fail, most comic campaigns, and that's everywhere. And so it's good to learn from the good ones, learn from the bad ones. And yeah, allow yourself to make mistakes. It's okay. Because, the next one will be better for sure. Okay, so I do have a question. This is for you, Peter. This is also for everyone else in the chat. I'm curious, very specifically with shipping. Is it a wise idea to charge extra for your US backers in order to help pay for your out of the country backers, if that makes sense? So like, let's say you're going to be you would normally charge $5 to ship to the US if you're shipping from the US to domestically, and then you're going to be charging like, I don't know, $25 to ship overseas. Is it a good idea to raise the rate so that it sort of flattens out? So I'm going to ask the chat this question first. If you have an opinion, how much more money should you charge domestic backers in order to sort of level that out? So just put a number in the chat. I'd be curious in hearing your all's opinion. And you can even say 0 too, if that's your number. And while people are doing that, Peter, I'm curious what your opinion is on that.
Is someone doing that? Do you know?
I've heard the discussion going around. I can't exactly say like
Yeah, no
point
names.
to anybody,
You don't need to. Yeah.
But yeah, that discussion has been going on for at least the past month that I've been aware, and I've seen it on Twitter and stuff. So yeah, I'm curious.
That's an interesting strategy. I wouldn't ever do that, but that's an interesting strategy. For instance, on this campaign, I've considered that shipping is basically built into the US reward. I like doing that a lot of the time with these. I don't like, here's the reward and then, oh, there's some extra shipping. I like building it all in and doing it that way. But for instance, on orderalterna.com, it's $5 flat shipping for United States customers. So whether they order one thing or they order 50 or 60 things, it's $5 the whole time. Now, that means in some cases, if you just order one issue, you're going to be paying a little more on shipping than, someone who orders 20 issues, and now we're going to pay maybe $1 or so more on shipping. But at the same time, that person that ordered 20 issues is ordering 20 issues. So your entire the amount of money you're making is totally different than that one little sale of just the one issue. But in terms of subsidizing in a massive way for a US order compared to outside the US, that's a risky thing to do, because I'd rather charge people accurately and do it that way instead of having people pay more to subsidize outside the US. And
sorry, my initial reaction is just because you don't know how much yet. You don't know what your overseas backers are going to be doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's hard. I mean, you could have one still, even though you're subsidizing shipping. In the chat, I feel like a lot of people are torn on this because we're not getting a lot of comments, but we have one that says $3.50. That's very specific. Levi Wallace says no more than a 10% increase. We have a 0. And then I saw someone say, make the overseas ones pay more to cover the US, the domestic ones. So yeah, that's sort of the other way around.
Well, a good rule of thumb for the most part when it comes to, again, I'm only speaking for comic campaigns. I don't have any experience with board games or whatever else in terms of, it's a whole different playing field with that. But in terms of comic campaigns, a good rule of thumb is, $5 is pretty good for all US orders. And that'll enable you to, you might make $1 on shipping here, but you're also going to lose $1 on shipping here with someone else. And $5 isn't really that crazy for shipping. That's pretty good. But when it comes to outside of the US, to Canada, to Europe, to Australia, those tend to be the major zones of where at least we ship to. And it's only maybe 8% to 10% of backers usually tend to be outside the US for any crowdfunder I've ever done. Even selling on orderalterna.com, it usually tends to be about 10% of who orders. It's people that order outside of the US. Shipping is expensive, so it's usually about $15, $16 a pound to Canada. I think it's like pretty much 9 or 10 ounces to 2 pounds. It's like $16 to Canada. And then it goes up like about $6, $7 a pound from that point on. And then for England, it's like $22, $23 from 9 ounces to like 2 pounds. And then it's like $10 a pound after that. And then for Australia, it's a little bit more than the UK. So you have to factor that in. And then if you want, you can factor in your shipping supplies. You can do that, or you can consider all of that kind of a loss, because it's not going to be too much money. It's honestly not, because even if you have like Alternaween, we had around 400 backers. So shipping supplies was about $250, I'd say, for 400 backers. And we raised, I think, almost close to 17,000. I think after all the fees and everything, we got like 15 and change. So $250 for shipping supplies isn't really going to kill you. You can consider that a loss. So it's all that kind of stuff where you factor all of that in, And the last thing that I ever want to do, if anyone knows me, I'm like almost the wrong person to say, hey, you want to take advantage of customers? I'm almost the wrong person. I'm the $1.50 newsprint comic guy.
Yeah.
I'm the last person on earth that's going to say, yeah, let him pay for it. No,
Yeah.
no, charge him either exact, or if anything, what I tend to do is I save him a couple quarters, or in some cases with international, I shave off like $2 or $3. So, I'd rather take a little bit of a loss and make sure people get what they want, because at the end of the day, let's say it's 20 international backers out of the 100, 200 backers. If I'm losing like $30 on shipping and they got their stuff, I'd rather that happen than they don't get anything and they feel like, well, it's a little too much, because it's going to be a lot of money and you can't control that because international shipping costs a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. That's the stuff that I don't know. It scares me a little bit, but yeah, I think you have good advice. I don't, and I've seen more people in the chat are saying Angram says that I am a foreigner, and that doesn't seem very fair. Meaning paying for other people's shipping. So yeah, I do think it's good. It's also transparent too. Like I think people understand that shipping costs money, and that's definitely a cost. Yeah. You're not always going to be, there's no such thing as a free meal. So yeah, that's good. But yeah, I like that idea. I think I'm for sure. Well, not I think I've already have my campaign set up, and I've already made it so that shipping reflects, what prices roughly are. So Ash on Comics says, hell Sweetcast, hell Peter. Hey, Ash on Comics has a really good YouTube channel. I enjoy his reviews for sure. Adam AF, did you want a wrench? Is that what all the wrenches are for? I could give you one if you'd like. Gonzo the Great says, Sweetcast, does the XII have a sequel coming? Really enjoying it.
Yep. The XII definitely does have a sequel coming. I think it's planned for 2021, because it's going to take a while for them to get it done right, because the artist of the book is tied up with another project for pretty much most of this year, and they want to spend next year getting it all done. So it's going to be a little bit, but I'm going to see if we can release some kind of something in 2020 that has to do with the XII. But we'll see. I'm not going to reveal anything just yet.
Cool. I'm gonna give a wrench here to Adam if he wants one. So I'm curious, with the shipping, that does bring up another question, and that is a question of distribution. Because I've had people ask me before, isn't it possible to have, like use Amazon for distribution so you can make shipping cheaper across the world? And I like that idea, but it doesn't seem very feasible for somebody you're just doing your first campaign and you're only getting, 500 to 1,000 books. It doesn't make a ton of sense. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on distribution? This might be a broader question, but how do you fix things?
Yeah. That's going to be tough, because even if you sell through, like we have a distributor that sells for us on Amazon, and they sell globally as well, but you're always paying somewhere. So traditional distribution is going to take upwards between usually 55 to sometimes 70%. And that's just that. So, you're thinking, okay, well, it might be cheaper in the long run for someone that can order it elsewhere, but at the same time, you're losing a big chunk of what you could be making. Now, it depends. If you're selling a good volume, if you're selling thousands of copies, if you're selling to a lot of places, if you're selling many books, so, doing the whole, well, we have like 50 books, and that would be crazy to constantly try to, ship them out. That's one thing. And then distribution, then you can definitely see the advantages. But the other advantage of distribution as well is that some places they just won't even look at you if you don't have distribution. So for instance, like Barnes and Noble, and again, this is where it gets dicey, because I'm not, the retail forecast is a bit cloudy right now for the future. But we'll utilize what we have, indisposed right now. And Barnes and Noble, they'll just take, you through distribution. And even then you still have to write them a letter. You can't just go through and say, hey, Barnes and Noble, you want to carry my book? That's not how it works. So you have to have a distributor that has connections with their vendor, their bookseller, their purchasing clientele, all of that. Same thing for libraries as well. You can donate books to the library, but if you want to sell the book to the library, you have to have a distributor. And usually most of the time they order through either Ingram or Baker and Taylor. So you have to either have them as your distributor, and there's tons of fees with those guys, or you go through another distributor that wholesale sells to Ingram and Baker and Taylor. So you take a little bit less money from that sale, but you don't have to pay the huge fees associated with those distributors. So there's all kinds of stuff. And then there's even things like barcoding fees. Barcodes are very expensive for graphic novels. Not so much for getting a UPC on a single issue, but all of that stuff is it's all in there, and you have to tabulate all that. You have to research it. And as far as Amazon fulfillment goes, I'm not entirely sure if that's like, people want us to sell single issues on Amazon all the time, but Amazon, they take a big chunk, and it's not really worth it. It's not really worth it. It might be for some people, but I find it's not worth it at this point for us, because we've managed to kind of brand going to our Etsy shop, our site shop, buy them on eBay, buy them at the comic shop, all that kind of stuff. We have all sorts of different things. We've got Comixology as well. So selling single issues on Amazon isn't really worth it, but selling graphic novels through our distributor has been pretty good. I think about 80%, honestly, of our graphic novel sales go through Amazon. So yeah, it's something to consider. But again, you got to give a pitch to a distributor. You got to give a pitch. So all of that stuff, doing it on your own, it has its advantages. But in terms of using it as a fulfillment thing, especially to get, I don't know if they offer a discount internationally that would be worth it, because they're gonna get their money somehow. So it could be, and taking the percentage away out of the book, a big chunk of it. So it turns out that, well, everyone sort of pays in the end.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I don't know. When I've been desperate, I've bought single issues on Amazon. I think twice is all that I can think of, but it's not even a great place to buy single issues. I don't know. When I buy from Amazon, the books always are beat up, or they're just way overpriced because of that. So I don't know. For me, yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense for single issues, but I have heard that brought up a lot. And then Ashton Comics brought something good up. So I called it the XII, but is that actually 7? Or the 7?
That it would be 12.
12. Oh,
it
wow.
Would be 12. Yeah, VII would be 7.
That's right.
Everybody confuses that, the V and the X. But the reason I hammer it home all the time that it's the XII, because if you go to look it up, if you go to search it, if you go to a retailer, if you say, oh, I want to know, you guys have the 12, can I look up the 12? They go, oh, okay, the 12. So they'll either put the number or they'll put TWELVE. But if you go the XII, then it'll come up. So that's why I kind of hammer it home. But yeah, it is representative of the Roman numerals for 12. But I hammer it home that it's XII.
Yeah. See, I should have just kept my mouth shut, because numbers, Roman numerals are hard. Eric Breen says Clint would never have made it in Roman times. Thank goodness. Yeah, I would have got fed to a lion.
You would have been losing money on shipping.
Yeah, a lot of money. That would not be good. Yeah, a reminder, everyone. So Alterna Comics has an Indiegogo up right now. They're crushing it. This is to expand, and so Adam AF went ahead and he put a different link in there too, but he's been dropping it. I'll drop it one more time. There we go. Definitely support Alterna Comics, because they're doing great things. They're tackling all the right kind of problems, and that's sort of the last topic I wanted to get to. I know we've been going for a little over an hour now, but thanking your customers. When I think of thanking your customers, I think of Alterna Comics. When it comes to your backers, just sort of the communication and things what kind of tips could you give us so for making them just feel good, and thanking them, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, in terms of that, I was actually going to do an update on the Indiegogo right after we film. So I'm going to film something. I'm going to put it up on the Indiegogo for an update for everybody, and I'm going to introduce them just in case. There's a lot of people. Obviously, I don't expect people to be glued to our campaign after they, back it or anything like that. I don't expect everybody to keep on checking every single hour. What are they up to? I don't expect that. So the update will come out, and it'll tell them we've hit our goal. We're on to stretch goals. We're really close to it. And this is what we're going to give out for stretch goals. Thank you guys for supporting. Thank you guys for making this happen. That's the thing you have to realize with the crowdfunder, especially, yeah, you're doing the work and you're putting the thing together and all that stuff. But without the people to support you, and this extends past crowdfunding as well, without anyone to support you, to purchase your product, to read your book, to talk about it with other people, to spread the word, you're not going to have a whole lot of anything in this business. This isn't one of those things where you just kind of show up, you punch in your time card, and that's about it, and you go home. This is something you literally are the master of your own success and failure. So you have to understand that success and failure, though, also depends upon other people supporting you. So do you get them, to support you, and then you go, oh, good, they're supposed to support me, who cares? Or do you go, wow, you know what, that's great. That I can't believe people, I never lose sight of that, and I hope I never do. And if I do, I hope someone tells me off about it. But I never lose sight of the fact that I'm doing this because everybody is supportive. If I didn't have people being supportive, I'd have nothing at all. And that's a very humbling and sobering thought. And that's something that I never lose sight of. And I'm super, super grateful for the people that support. And I think everybody's aware of that. But, like I've said before, the least you can do is thank people when they read your book, thank people when they support and purchase the book. That kind of stuff, that's putting a roof over people's heads, food on the table, all that kind of stuff. That's just, this is something that is them going, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I want to support you, make sure that you can do more of this in the future, and that you are okay, and that you can continue to do this. And that means a lot. So why shouldn't people say thank you for that?
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's I had this conversation on Twitter earlier today about well, so for me it's it's a little weird because I read comics. I think of myself as a consumer, but at the same time, if you're launching a campaign, which I am here in a week and a half, you're stepping across the line. You're then serving a customer. You're a creator, and so there's a level of responsibility that comes with that, and that is being grateful. I mean, it's not hard to do, but it seems like there are many people that are really willing to overlook customers and forget that. So I think that's really good advice to live by. I got to say that Adam AF, I'm really glad I gave you a wrench. He says go get a buttload of Alterna comics. He's posting the link. So yeah, great job with the wrench. I love that. Peter, anything else you want to say before we close off the stream?
Let's see. I see. I'm seeing the chat too, and I see one question from Levi Wallace. Wants to know what individual titles are only published bi-monthly from Alterna. So every single title on Alterna is bi-monthly except for ICYMI. That is a monthly title. Everything else is every other month it comes out. And then other than that, we release usually, I think, about maybe 5 or 6 graphic novels a year. So yeah, they're all bi-monthly except for ICYMI.
Very cool. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, we're going to get ready to close it. But if you have a quick question, put in at Sweetcast so we don't miss you. And yeah, we'll be happy to catch that question. And I will remind you guys, so my book Downcast is launching. It's a week from Tuesday. So it's coming up quickly. I've got a mailing list, and that's in the description below. So if you want, I've got a special perk to thank the people that have been here from the beginning, and you'll get that through the mailing list. And then, yeah, I mean, the other thing is just, support Alterna Comics. I don't see any other questions. So I think that we're going to wrap it up, then we'll let you get on with your evening, Peter. So really appreciate you coming on. It's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, great to talk to you as well. And thank you all in the chat for coming out and saying hello.
Yeah, we do have a question here. Sammy Ree says, what is the purpose of the bi-monthly release dates?
Oh, okay. So the bi-monthly release dates, it makes the scheduling a bit easier on the creators, but it also makes ordering a bit easier for retailers. So for those that don't know, when it comes to pre-ordering and all that other stuff in comics, every time the previews catalog comes out, usually 2 months later, what's featured in that book, that's when that stuff comes out into comic shops. So having a book pretty much in comic shops at the same time that the next book is in previews enables a retailer to go, well, did this book do well? You know, are people interested right now in this book? And then they can order, hopefully accordingly. Or a customer can then order the book and say, oh, okay, I see that the next one is coming out. Otherwise, if it's monthly, retailers are having, you know, ideally you do, of course, want to have stuff right now. I wish we could put out a book every single week and just, that would be it. But it takes time and there's budgets involved and everything else. So this enables, at least, it's the best of kind of both worlds for us to get stuff out, retailers to have an idea of what to order. Because of that, Alterna Books, if you guys are in the chat, I don't know how closely you follow comic sales, but usually number one orders really high. And then it nosedives out of number two. And it goes down sometimes 60, 70% from what sold of number one. And that's because the retailer, usually it's a monthly book, and they have to order blind on 2 and 3. And then you'll notice sometimes number 4, it'll inch back up a bit. But damage has already been done for the most part, because if it's a really popular book, what happens is they order a lot of the 1. Let's say everyone really likes it. You can't find 2 and 3 really anywhere because they under order. And then by the time they go back to print on 2 and 3, because they figured that, oh, those sold well, we got to get them back, people go, I'm just going to wait for the trade. So what happens is the single issue sales never really matter. They turn into just these big confusing things that drag shops down. But with our books, they're spaced out every other month. So a retailer orders number 1. There's usually just like a 30% drop to number 2. Number 3 stays pretty even. And then 4 usually goes up a little bit. And that's what we've been kind of seeing. So especially over time, retailers are getting used to our books, because the first year in 2017 when the newsprint came out, a lot of people didn't know what to make of it. A lot of people thought, well, $1.50 price point, it's so far below the average. People are probably going to assume that, well, the books must be crap because they're cheap. And no, they're on newsprint. That's why they're cheaper. The profit is still the same margin as if you printed on a premium paper stock and sold it for $5. But it enables everybody to go, oh, Alterna, okay, $1.50, looks interesting, I'll try it. Yeah. Whereas if you do that with another book, if it's $5, you go, I don't know. I really got to make sure I like every single thing I'm seeing about this book. I'm going to look at it, open it up, make sure I read a couple pages, make sure the creators are top quality. You scrutinize the book a lot more. And then if you still buy the book, take it home and read it and go, damn, that really wasn't that great. You look at that and go, I didn't get a good value for that $5. But with an Alterna book, it's almost impossible to go, oh, I got ripped off, I got gypped. Even if the book's not for you, even if you feel the book isn't great, it's still absolutely worth the $1.50. And you go, oh, I'll try out another one. So that we've noticed people go, I tried out 4 out of the 5 releases, let's say, and I really liked them. And I'm going to go back for that 5th. And now all of a sudden, they've got all our books on a pull list. They've got a subscription for the year. They're getting all of our back catalog on orderalterna.com. So that's it's just, it makes comic purchasing an impulse buy again, which is what they should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that about your model. Anne Graham asked, do you guys know if there are any good print-on-demand services for comics, and what do you think about print-on-demand? I will say my novel is print-on-demand through Amazon. It's convenient. I'll be honest, the CreateSpace, their books aren't I don't really like the quality. Like, I'll be honest, the print, it just doesn't look great. But I'm sure there are other print on demand services that are better. I don't know, Peter, have you had any experiences with that?
Yeah, when we started out, we did a lot of print on demand. We used Kablam, and I don't think ComExpress is around anymore. But we also offer the printing partnership program. So basically, if you want to get your comic printed on newsprint, you can get 500 copies of a black and white or color comic, 32 pages, which is kind of the average, and 50 cents a piece. And after shipping and everything else, I think it usually comes out to around 80 cents a piece, which is going to be, I'll tell you right now, it's going to be about 4 times less than going print on demand. Usually those books are about $275 to $325 a piece.
Yeah, you're not talking about a very big investment either. You can buy as low as
500.
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit, after everything is said and done, a little bit over $300 for 500 comics.
Yeah. Ethan Von Skyver says, Peter, do you provide digital copies?
Yeah. We sell digitally on Comixology, and also every month this year we're releasing 10 PDF digital downloads of issues on orderalterna.com. So I think we got about 20 on there right now. We're going to be adding 10 more very, very soon.
We have another question. I haven't bought Alterna books as of yet. I'm interested, but what titles would Peter recommend for a guy like me that grew up with 90s X-Men Spider-Man stuff?
Ooh, my favorites. I love that stuff. So if you were into 90s X-Men and Spider-Man, I would say you'd probably really enjoy Scrimshaw. You'd probably like The Wicked Righteous. If you are interested just in superheroes, The Tick, we have The Tick director of the animated series, Hank Tucker. He has the actual Roger, it is an all ages book, but it's got that tongue-in-cheek humor of The Tick. So if you were interested in The Tick, you could try that out. As far as X-Men, Spider-Man, again, as far as that goes, I would say, let me see. I'm looking over at what we've got in the box.
Yeah, I've started reading Scrimshaw, and I've been enjoying that one so far. I need to finish it. But yeah, Scrimshaw I liked, so I would definitely recommend that personally. But you've got a lot.
Yeah, you'd probably like, because I got a whole box here. I'll just show all you guys. A lot of you guys have seen the setup. Oh no, the magic is broken. So here's the whole.
You're not in a fancy studio? What?
Yeah. So there's a whole box that I'm looking at. If everyone's like, what's he looking at? Feast or Famine's really, really good. Tremendously amazing art on that. Good sci-fi action story. Eden's a good sci-fi adventure story. Some superhero elements in that as well. Same thing with Exilium, kind of a little bit more of the sci-fi procedural space exploration stuff, but still very engaging. There's a whole lot of titles at Alterna. You can't go wrong if you get the #1 bundle that we have, which is 24 #1 first issues. You can try out every single thing, and I think it's like $35 or so. Or you could even get the mystery grab bag, which is $7.50, and you get the tote bag, and you get 10 comics. They're all different. There's no doubles, and you get a tote bag as well, and a signed issue. One of them is a signed issue. Usually, I sign it.
See, that's the thing, is that there's not a big risk, they're so cheap. They're inexpensive. And so, yeah, there's not a big risk into trying a new comic, which is, a lot of times I'll go to my local comic shop and you'll see one, but it's always, for some reason, it's like a bigger size comic. It'll be like $9. I'm like, ugh, I don't know if I'm even going to like it.
Right.
But it happens. Fenner27 says, Peter, are you going to put out trades for Midnight Mysteries, Feast or Famine, and Eden?
Yep. Those will all have trades, definitely.
Very cool. All right. Well, we're going to cut it off there. I'm going to let you get back to your evening because I know you've got other videos to make. So thanks for coming on, Peter. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Really, really appreciate it. And I will see you next time.